Hi, welcome to Cinnamon Babe Horror Stories. I'm Cinnamon Babe, and every Friday I discuss creepy topics while I do my makeup. So if that interests you, please like and subscribe, and please enjoy the video. What happens to us when we die? Do we go somewhere else? Or does a part of us sometimes get left behind in the home we once lived in? The Sallie House, one of the most haunted houses in America, believed to be inhabited by a little girl named Sallie who tragically died in the home and is believed to be haunting the property. Or is it haunted by something far more sinister? In the late 1800s in Atchison, Kansas, if I'm saying that correctly, there was a doctor named Charles Finney who lived in a home where he also did his medical practice. So in the house, Dr. Finney would do his surgeries and patient exams in the basement, and then on the upper levels of the house, him and his family, that's where they stayed. So one day, a frantic mother rushes her 6-year-old daughter, Sallie, to Dr. Finney's house. The little girl had been experiencing severe abdominal pain, and once Dr. Finney examined her, he had diagnosed her with appendicitis. So the appendix is a part of the colon, and it doesn't really have no known purpose, but when it becomes inflamed and it fills with pus, it causes severe pain, and back in the 1800s, it was very life-threatening. So Dr. Finney decided to do an emergency surgery on Sallie, and unfortunately, he did not properly administer the anesthesia to her, and so while he was cutting into her, she woke up and she experienced severe pain, and unfortunately, she passed away during surgery. So I'm not 100% sure after Sallie's death if the Finney family experienced any paranormal experiences, but they ended up moving out of the home in 1947, and it became a property for lease. And so throughout the years, tenants didn't really stay long due to the violent paranormal experiences that went on in the house. It is believed that because Sallie experienced such a traumatic death, that it left a negative energy in the home, and that Sallie pretty much was haunting the house. And so like I said, the house remained pretty much vacant throughout the years until 1993 when a young couple rented the home. So Tony and Deborah Pickman moved into the house with their newborn baby boy, and at first everything went as planned. The family was just very excited to start their new lives in their new home with their new family. Like I said, everything was going normal, but then little things started to happen. The lights would go dim while the couple was in the living room watching TV, and this would happen often. Their son would wake up crying throughout the night, even after being put fast to sleep, and this would happen often. It would kind of mess up their sleep patterns, and so they just felt exhausted all the time. But these are little things, so it was never at this point, it was never a cause for concern. It just was awkward. So one day when the couple came home, Tony saw that the nursery light was on, and so when he looked into the room, he saw all the little stuffed animals in a circle on the floor, and with no explanation as how they got there. So he ran back downstairs and told his wife and his sister-in-law, and they all just put the stuffed animals back and turned off the light. So when the three of them, after they fixed the room and turned off the lights, they started walking down the steps, and when they had reached the bottom of the stairs, they heard the lights flick back on. So they ran back to the room to see what the heck, and the stuffed animals were back on the floor, and of course the light was back on, and this would mark the first major unexplainable event in the house. So after putting the animals back and shutting off the light, 15 minutes later, Deborah went to go check on the room again. And the stuffed animals were back in a circle on the floor, but they were in the dark this time. So that night, the whole family decided to sleep in the master bedroom together with the dog standing guard. So the family dog was pretty alert and leery about the nursery. He never would enter it, and he would stand at the entrance of it barking and growling. So Tony, he would often hear footsteps moving around up and down the steps, And being the rational man that he was, he just assumed that it was the family cats. I guess they had like 2 cats just moving around in the house. So one night, Tony like just got tired of hearing the noises. So like I said, assuming that it was the cats, he ran to go stop them from running up and down the steps. And when he got to the top of the steps, he saw nothing there at all. And so he just froze there, staring into the darkness of the staircase. And next thing he knows, he hears the footsteps running towards him, and a cold wind brushed past him, and the sound of children's laughter. One day, Tony was asleep, and I guess Deborah was in the room with him. And she said, out of nowhere, he rose up and said, "He's mine," in a strange voice, and laid back down and went to sleep. And at this point, she just assumed that he was dreaming. And when he woke up, she told him what happened, and he didn't remember. So also, the family, they had like pictures hung going up the staircase. And sometimes they would find the pictures hung upside down with the glass cracked. They would also find candles completely melted down, even some that weren't even unwrapped out of the packaging. And then one of the candles even had like a handprint in like the melted part of it, like a child handprint. And then also none of the wicks were burnt, so how did they melt? So as this behavior continued in the home, finally the couple reached out for help and ended up coming in contact with the TV show called Sightings. The TV crew ended up coming out, and they were able to document many of the accounts that Tony and Deborah were experiencing. So this was proof, and it was such good footage that the crew kept coming back for updates. So random items in the home would catch fire. They would find like little like baby flames just appear out of nowhere on different items. One of the toys ended up catching fire, but it was like in like a weird spot of the toy, and it looked intentional. And this really worried the Pickman family because they felt like their lives were in danger because, you know, like a house fire could happen. So unfortunately, the Sightings crew team or whatever encouraged the Pickman couple that their experiences was coming from the apparition of a little girl named Sallie, the 6-year-old child that had passed away all those years ago in the house. Because different crew members of the sighting show would claim to see apparitions of the little girl in the house during the filming of the show Sightings. So a psychic ended up coming to the house, and she also confirmed that the spirit belonged to a little girl named Sallie, the one that had died from the surgery, in that she just really wanted their attention and she wanted to be a part of their family. And for some odd reason, out of innocence obviously, Deborah, this like really moved her, and she sympathized with the little girl and she wanted to, you know, welcome her into their lives. But Tony knew something wasn't right. One day, Tony even experienced a random bite on his leg, like he could feel like something biting him. And when he looked, he can see a bite mark on his leg. And from there on, random scratches and welts would appear all over his body. And the sighting show was even able to capture it happening. One day when Tony came home from work, it was nighttime. And while he was drinking some juice, he was looking towards the basement stairs door, which was open. And there standing, he could see a little girl looking the age of 6 or like around that age. And she had an old-fashioned dress on, and she looked scared, and he could see through her. Tony would later draw a picture of her to show like what she looked like. And a former resident who used to live there, when they were a child, said that they had an imaginary friend named Sallie that looked exactly like the picture. One day, I guess Tony was in his bedroom and he saw a woman walk past, and she looked exactly like his wife, but she was dressed in an old-fashioned maid uniform. But like I said, looked exactly like his wife, and her hair was like up in like an old-fashioned hairstyle. And when he went to follow her, she had disappeared into a room. So here's when it gets really bad, and this freaked me out so bad, like studying about this story. I was so scared. So one day, like this is everybody's worst fear. Tony is laying in bed and he's wide awake because, you know, things have just been happening in the house and it's scary. And he can see at the foot of his bed dust particles coming together, like, and it's making a form. And then the form created what appeared to be an old woman dressed in black, like from the movie Insidious. So they had a waterbed, like, yeah, this is the 90s. It's kind of funny. But he was laying on a waterbed, And I guess his wife wasn't in the room. He was in the room by himself. The waterbed started to like flap around, and then the drawers like started to open and shut, like slam open and shut. And next thing he knows, the woman is floating towards him. Jesus help us. The woman is floating towards him with her arms open like that. And like it looks like she's trying to choke him. Oh my Jesus, this is so scary. But it looks like she's trying to choke him. And she even says, "I'm gonna," like that. So horrible. So Tony ended up seeing, like, as the woman was coming towards him, he ended up seeing what looked like a black bird, like, swoop by. And when that happened, the woman disappeared, like, with it. And once that happened, Tony screamed for his wife, who was, I guess, with the baby at the time. And she went to open the door, and she, like, struggled to get in. It was like the door was locked. And she finally came in, and she didn't hear anything. Like, all that noise that was going on in the room, she was completely oblivious to it. So another night, and this happened often, Tony would see the little girl again that he saw before. But this time, she'd be at the foot of his bed, and she'd reach out for him, like, "Pick me up." And Tony would, like, reject her, like, which he should. And this would, like, really make her mad. And she would growl at him like a wild animal. And then she would, like, transform into, like, a zombie creature with rotting flesh, which is, horrifying. The sightings team would constantly return to get updates, and Tony said that this would make things worse. He would get more scratches all over his body, and like I said, the crew was able to capture a lot of that happening, like on his forehead. It would just appear all over his chest, hands, everywhere, just all over his body. And next thing Tony knows, he starts to get the strong urge to harm his wife. He kept hearing voices telling him to, like, unalive his wife. And when he would be outside of the house, he would feel back to normal. So this went on for many months, and Tony would just wake up in the morning with just horrible thoughts and just very strong, like, evil emotions. And he would often have terrible dreams of him violently ending his wife's life. And then it finally got to the point where he even went on to kill the family cat, and he stabbed it to death. And to this day, he has no recollection of doing it, and it just really haunts him that he did that. Like, he feels so guilty. So Deborah, on the other hand, like I said, she sympathized with the little girl, well, what she thought was a little girl in the house, and she wasn't experiencing anything negative. She just was so curious and wrapped up in the whole experience of it that to this day, she can't even explain, like, why she felt like that. She felt like those feelings were not coming from her, but at the time, she was just so wrapped up in it. So one day, Tony was even thrown to the rungs of the staircase, and he shattered, broke the wood on it, and he felt like something had tried to push his body down the steps. So finally, that experience alone was just the final straw. The Pickmans, they finally moved out. They couldn't take it anymore, and this was 3 weeks later. So after Tony and Deborah Pickman moved out, a woman, I guess, moved into the house by herself, and it was reported that she was trashing the house. And so she got evicted, and when the landlord went to check on the property, there was a pentagram drawn on the basement floor and strange markings all over the wall. So, of course, the years after Tony and Deborah's experience and the documentation of the show Sightings, the house became a sensation and is, like, world-renowned and one of the most famously haunted houses one of the most in America. It attracted many documentaries and TV shows and ghost enthusiasts, and the TV show Ghost Adventures. And on that show, they invited Tony and Deborah back, and Tony would experience the random scratches all over his body all over again during the shooting of the TV show. So they got some really cool footage for that, even though at his expense, but he did it to himself, because why the heck did he come back? Also, Tony would say that he felt guilty for believing that the energy was something evil, because I guess, like, from everybody believing that it was a child, it just made him feel guilty. But, like, Tony, you experienced some horrible stuff in that house. Like, that's the indication that it's something evil. So to this day, visitors experience the same thing that Tony experienced, and they're usually men. They would get the random scratches all over their bodies, and even though they were terrified, many of the visitors would say that they feel the strong urge to return to the home. And that's kind of similar to what Deborah was experiencing, because she felt like the urge to continue to like investigate into it, even though it was terrorizing her family. So to this day, the house is a major tourist attraction, attracting ghost enthusiasts and investigators from all over the world. You can even stay there, like, because I went to the website, you can even stay there for $125 per person with a 2-person minimum, meaning you can't bring like a bunch of people with you. It's only 2 people, so it makes it even more terrifying. And then you have to sign a waiver because of the mysterious injuries that may occur, like the scratches. Oh my God. So in conclusion, this was like a really scary story for me, but I believe that there is no such thing as ghosts. And when you die, you either go up or you go down. And you have zero access to the living world. Like, you can't see it or be a part of it. Yes, I believe that the Sallie House is haunted, but not by someone that used to be alive or like a good spirit. I believe that it's haunted by evil spirits, demons, that were attracted by whatever bad event occurred in the house, whether it had been, the surgery that went bad or something else. Either way, evil spirits were attracted to that property. And unfortunately, I see a lot of people that are like ghost enthusiasts, ghost hunters, or just people that are just innocent and don't know like anything about the spiritual realm. And if you like see how people approach it, like if you watch any of the shows or whatever, if you see how they speak to the spirits, they speak to them as if they're like a being that is less intelligent than people, or they speak to it like it's an animal, like a puppy, like, hi, can you tell me your name? Or hi, hi, am I welcome here? Like, they talk to them like it's like kind of almost disrespectful. Like, and I know they're not intending to be that way, but these beings are shapeshifters, and they are very intelligent and ancient. They've been here longer than us. So they know how to like trick us and gain access into our lives by lying, for one, and like I said, being shape-shifting and appearing to be something, and the key word is appearing to be something that is good or harmless. These spirits are seeking to harm, and like I said, they're seeking to gain like power in your life, and they are attracted to people that are, 1, uneducated about the spiritual realm, and 2, are not covered in the blood of Jesus. My advice is to stay away from places like the Sallie House. Stay away from known haunted places and build a relationship with Jesus Christ, because he is the only one who can protect you from these evil spirits. Like, you cannot fight them by yourself. So in conclusion, if you are a person who has experienced seeing things, unexplainable things, or like say you saw something that may have appeared to be your family from like a deceased loved one, and they're being pleasant towards you, I want to urge you to, the next time you see a spirit that may appear to be a nice spirit, let's just say it appears to be a nice spirit, I want to invite you to just start calling on the name of Jesus. Like, even if you don't believe, like, this is like a challenge. If you're a person who sees spirits, like if you see something and it's like trying to talk to you or just appears to you, I urge you to like call on the name of Jesus, like, or even talk to it about Jesus and see what happens.